The first time I saw American Werewolf in London was a slightly disastrous experience in some respects because I'd heard a lot about the film. Basically, I grew up kind of like reading, things like Starburst and Starlog, and being, so excited about kind of special effects films, and obviously like being of the generation, Star Wars. I saw Star Wars when I was 3, and immediately kind of had an interest in not just films but special effects and makeup. And American Werewolf in London was one of those films where there was a sort of a crossover in terms of it was obviously like an adult film, but because it had like monster effects in it, me and my brother were very aware of its release, even though I was 6 when it was released, or 7. So I read all about it and I knew all about it, and I had the infamous Starburst issue, which I think got a lot of complaints from kind of like sort of parents because it featured a cover of David Norton and all of the zombies like in the cinema, in a cinema very much like this. And so and I remember like seeing that and also seeing some of the pictures of like some of the gore, because Starburst at that point, I think when Alan Jones was editing it, was really gory for like a sort of period of about 6 months in the early 80s. So anyway, I knew all about it. And then it was on, I didn't get to see it until it was on TV, when it was on the BBC in like 1983 or 1984, I guess. And I remember because, even though I was still at that point only maybe like 8 or 9 maybe, that it was still kind of like too adult for me. But my parents were well aware that me and my brother liked anything that was vaguely genre-y, and because it had monsters in it and it had special effects, we were allowed to stay up and watch it. So we started watching the film, me and my brother and my parents, and, I was so kind of, I remember it being such an intense experience because not only is it funny and the special effects, but it's so scary, and especially watching that kind of opening as a kid. When it got to the Nazi monsters flashback, my mum and dad suddenly went, okay, that's enough, bed. So basically, when I was like, I guess like 9, the last image I saw of the first time I watched American Werewolf in London was David Norton's throat getting slit, and then I was sent to bed. And my bedroom was near the TV room, so I could hear the rest of the film. Now, the thing is, I don't really see the wisdom of being sent to bed, because like, if you don't get to see the end of the film and the resolution, you have even worse nightmares than if you'd seen the whole thing. So then I remember like for the next couple of weeks, I had nightmares about the bits that I'd seen, particularly the Nazi kind of monster sequence and the bit in the woods with the kind of Norton in kind of pale face going, Wah! The kabuki kind of moment. It haunted me. So I don't think I saw it again until it was the next time it was on TV in its entirety. And, it became, through my teens, I just became absolutely obsessed by it. It just became, one of my favourite films. It's one of my favourite films to this day, But it was funny that the first time I got to watch it, I didn't get to see the whole thing. I think sort of, I think David Norton and Griffin Dunne are both obviously amazing in the film, and I think one of the things that really works great in the opening is that sort of Griffin Dunne is so great in the first 20 minutes, and in a sense, like he's the funny one, like at the start of it, and you have an immediate connection with him because his timing is brilliant and really great charismatic performance, and then he's dead, and it works brilliantly. Sort of, I don't know whether that was intention in the casting, but I also think sort of David Norton gives an amazing performance, and it's funny, I wasn't really aware. I think in the UK, when I was kind of like sort of a teenager, I used to think, wow, what happened to David Norton? Why is David Norton not in anything else? And I'm not sure to this day I've ever seen any other films that he's been in, or any of the TV stuff. And I wasn't aware that in the US there was any stigma about his casting at all, because I think prior to American Werewolf he was famous for the Dr. Pepper ads and the sitcom that Saturday Night Fever sitcom he did, and the spin-off single Making It. I wasn't aware of all that, so I just thought, who's this guy? So I think sort of like whether and weirdly, like he, sometimes some of his kind of career turns up as like a, like a footnote on one of those VH1 kind of one-hit wonder kind of shows about his disco single. But the truth of the matter is he's really great in the film. And when I watched it again recently with an audience, you're just reminded of, it's not kind of like insignificant to. There's a lot of great elements in that film from the direction to the soundtrack to the effects. But somebody's got to hold it together, and David Naughton totally holds it together. And I think my favourite scene of his, and the scene that always really gets me, is when he's calling his sister on from the phone box and trying to impress to his sister how much he loves his parents and how much he loves her, and her kind of like sort of not taking any kind of taking it very seriously at all. That scene of him ringing his parents and then trying to slit his wrists is brilliant, and it's kind of those moments of like pathos and sort of kind of seriousness in a sort of that work really well in a sort of a film that kind of like is essentially a comedy horror, that it has those kind of like sort of real kind of dramatic moments. I think they really make it, and David Naughton completely sells that. All of the bits involving Brian Glover, like they're so memorable. Like Beware the Moon is like sort of like really memorable. Just so many lines in it that just kind of burn into your sort of burn into your kind of consciousness. Really, I mean, You Made Me Miss is obviously one of the most famous ones. But the one that me and my friends always used to impersonate in school, there's various lines that we always used to impersonate. Me and my friend Graham would watch the film so many times that we'd have different lines that we'd impersonate. And the other one, there's Brian Glover when he's standing, when the doctor's talking to the other guy outside the pub, and Brian Glover comes along and goes, "That's enough! That's enough!" And that's the bit that always gets me, and that's the bit that I whenever I watch it now, it's just like watching kind of like it's like watching Casablanca or something for me, because every like 5 lines there's a line that I've like sort of impersonated so many times. The other one that we always used to impersonate and indeed turned up in an episode of Space was the commuters lines on Tottenham Court Road, and we'd always kind of like sort of just keep kind of doing the same routine of going, "Hello, is there anybody there? I can assure you this isn't the least bit amusing." Like, that guy is incredible too. There's so many great performances. And I think one of the things that like sort of, which is very, very rare for an American film, and all credit to John Landis for this, is that it really nails what's great and what's ugly about Britain. And so many other films kind of do their depictions of the UK are so kind of fantastical and so in this kind of strange sort of like, kind of Japanese tourist vision of like double-decker buses and beef eaters and stuff. And whilst it has that, it still has this kind of like sort of bleakness and ugliness to it. I think the thing that sort of looks so British about the film, its most British bit, is the great bit where David Naughton flicks through the channels on the TV and gets is it the darts? It's darts, isn't it? Not snooker.
Darts.
It's the darts. It's the News of the World advert. The News of the World advert is perfect. That bit is incredible.
And of course the
test card.
Page. Yeah, the test card.
Yeah, to have the test card, the News of the World advert, and the darts are just like, for a child who grew up through the late 70s and early 80s when you only had 3 channels and usually there was fuck all on, that really sort of spoke to me, and I thought, well, he nailed it. Like, I'm sure like John Landis must have spent some long nights in hotel rooms trying to find something to watch on TV.